I'm always on the lookout for games with a new idea, or at least an interesting angle on an old one. So when I do come across a game that ticks these boxes, it catches my interest pretty quickly. What's up guys, it's Ridehouse, and today I'm looking at an upcoming game that you might just want to add to your watch list. Sifu is an upcoming third-person kung fu fighting action game from French indie developer Sloclap. These are the people behind the pretty popular online multiplayer fighter Absolver, so it's clear that they already know a thing or two about making a decent martial arts game. Apparently the game was inspired by kung fu movies starring Jackie Chan, where Chan defeats multiple enemies single-handedly whilst using the environment around him to his advantage, something I've also always enjoyed, and from the footage from the trailers that you are seeing here, it's pretty easy to see the inspirations in play. In Sifu, you will take on the role of a young martial arts student on the path of revenge as he hunts for the mysterious assassins that murdered his family. He is an army of one with no allies and countless enemies to smack about a bit. He has to rely on his unique mastery of kung fu as well as a mysterious pendant to complete his journey and preserve his family's legacy. Now that pendant is the interesting bit that caught my attention, and we'll get to that in a minute. On your hunt for your enemies, you will be taken to various locations around the city, and from what I could find from rummaging around online, there will apparently be around 5 different locations in total. These include rundown urban suburbs, apartments, a nightclub with an underground fight ring, and a super corporate looking office tower. The locations are linear in nature, but I did see mention of some more open areas. Just how open these areas are remains to be seen, but before anyone gets hopes of running around in a spiritual successor to Sleeping Dogs,
you look like you could use a pork bun.
I would assume that they just mean a couple of different routes to take in a building, or something along those lines. After all, just how open can a nightclub or office be? All environments in these locations will be interactive and allow you to use what is around you to your advantage and improvise some pretty cool attacks. For instance, you can kick an enemy off a ledge or throw a bottle at them. In the footage here, you can see the player thrown into a wooden wall which is then destroyed. The player then picks up a wooden beam from the destroyed wall and begins smacking enemies with it. This should allow for some pretty fun fights that should feel very fluid, and hopefully stop them from being too repetitive. I know for myself when I play these games, I tend to find an attack sequence that's reliable, and then I just rinse and repeat in various situations. Hopefully this will stop me from being able to do that, and should make combat feel a lot more reactive. The combat in Sifu is inspired by Pak Mei Kung Fu, and I hope I said that right, and it supposedly includes over 150 different attacks. Basic attack moves can be chained together, with some combos potentially giving players additional tactical opportunities, such as being able to knock down enemies or stun them. There will be a structural gorge which, when fully filled, will break the guard of the enemy and leave them open and vulnerable to attack. This doesn't just apply to enemies though, it also applies to you. For instance, if you block too many times consecutively, your guard will break and you will be left open, allowing some random mob to pound you into the dirt. To avoid this happening, you will also have the ability to evade or parry an attack. A successful parry lets you stun the enemy or lets you throw them in a particular direction, such as into a wall, a counter, down a flight of stairs, or straight off a balcony. I mean, what more could you want? As a side note, the mobs, I guess you could call it personality, it might change during a fight. As in, if you have just beaten up a bunch of enemies, the last one left standing might enter a state of frenzy and suddenly become a lot more powerful, kind of like becoming a little mini-boss. Apparently there will also be interactive dialogue, and some dialogue options will allow you to avoid combat altogether. Why you would actually want to do that in a kung fu fighting game, I don't know, but I'm sure they'll have a reason for it. So this is where things get interesting. The thing that caught my attention and stopped me from thinking this was just another martial arts game was this mysterious pendant. When you die in the game, which apparently you can expect to happen a lot as it is intended to be quite challenging, you will be magically resurrected on the spot thanks to this pendant. The catch is, you will age a few years each time. As your guy ages, your attacks will get more powerful, but you'll also have less health, which leaves you even more vulnerable to attacks. Essentially, you turn into a bit of a glass cannon. This sounds pretty interesting to me and should make Sifu a more unique experience. To add to this, you will be able to visit shrines where you can heal up and unlock new skills and abilities. These abilities will be lost upon death unless you have focused enough skill points into a particular ability, which will allow you to unlock it permanently for use at the beginning of each run. In terms of the gameplay loop, it sounds as though you'll be doing a number of runs to get stronger as you go, hopefully completing your journey before you age too much and kick the bucket for good. In between these runs you can visit a kung fu school, whose name I will put here to save me butchering the pronunciation, and at this school you'll be able to practice your skills in between levels. There will also be a detective board that can be accessed after completing multiple runs, which will allow you to put together the mystery of why those darned assassins murdered your family, and may also open up secret areas and shortcuts. Overall, I think it all sounds pretty fun, and if the sources I have read are to be trusted, it sounds as though it will be a challenging game with a good amount of replay value. The age mechanic adds a new and interesting twist on the experience, and the detective story will hopefully be interesting enough to tie it all together, and keep it from feeling like a repetitive chore. The gameplay all looks very fluid, and I see a nice amount of variation in the fights. I am reserving judgment on the skill system, as I'm not really a fan of losing progress as I go, but hopefully it will be just difficult enough to earn the points needed to retain a skill, and not so hard that it feels too much of a chore and is easier to just wing it with a few skills until you die and age up again. Sifu was actually due for release in 2021, but has since been delayed, and its new release date is February 22nd, 2022. This was done to further polish the game and avoid overworking the team, which I have no problem with at all. I wish more games would do this, as I am pretty sick of playing buggy games that have just been rushed out. It's set to be released on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 and PC via the Epic Game Store. The game is available for pre-order, and for those that are interested in doing so, the deluxe edition gives you access to the game 48 hours earlier, as well as an art book and a soundtrack composed by Howie Lee. Link in the description for those that want to check it out. I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, let me know what your thoughts are on the game down in the comments. That's all from me on this one. See you in the next one.